You don't need to hold a gun to pull off a robbery. You just need to hold a grudge and a phone with no GPS. I never stepped inside the museum. Never touched a frame. Didn't even cross the border. But when the vault door swung open at 2:14 a.m. and a $40 million painting vanished into smoke and silence, I was already on a plane heading the other direction. Because I wasn't the thief. I was the man who built the plan. Most people think a heist starts with blueprints, or a laser grid, or some guy in a ski mask. But it always starts with resentment. Mine had been aging for 6 years. The Wexley Museum of European Modernism. A glass palace of arrogance and overpriced security located in Antwerp. Billionaires came to sip wine in its private salons and pretend they understood what they were looking at. I knew what was in there. Because 12 years ago, I helped them hang half of it. Back when I was nobody. An art handler. Gloves. Clipboard. Minimum wage. Maximum knowledge. I studied the movement of every piece. The weight. The temperature sensitivity. The private donors who requested. Non-visible. Insurance riders. One painting stuck in my mind like a splinter. Study in Ash and Gold. By F. Selinsky. Valued at $38 million but insured quietly for $40. A war piece. Quiet. Small. Hung in the upper gallery like it didn't matter. But it did. Because it was the only one they couldn't trace publicly. It had been donated by a name that didn't exist. And I knew why. That painting didn't belong to them. It didn't belong to anyone, really. It had been taken during a raid in Sarajevo in '95. It was supposed to be in a vault in Belgrade, sealed under UN watch. And yet, here it was. Behind glass. Labeled as acquired anonymous. Legal theft, curated by elite taste. That's when I knew. One day I'd take it back. Not for justice. Not for the people who lost it. But because they thought it could be hidden behind paperwork and guards and bulletproof glass. They forgot something critical. I'd already been inside the frame. I started with 3 names. Not friends. Not partners. People I could vanish if they crossed me, and who knew I could do the same. The first was Koji. Japanese-born, raised in Rotterdam, fluent in code and cleanroom infiltration. He specialized in optical manipulation, infrared displacement, spectrum rebroadcasting, sensor echo. If a camera saw anything, it was what he told it to see. The second was Elodie. Paris. Locksmith. Ex-forger. Spent time in Lyon's underworld turning gallery forgeries into 6-figure scams. She had hands like silence, thin, controlled, and quick. Could pick a 9-pin safe in under 30 seconds without gloves. The third was Marek. Polish ex-military. Munitions trained. Loud when needed, invisible when not. He'd worked for both sides, government and gangs, and never told you which one he respected less. He was my insurance policy. None of them knew who I was. Not exactly. We spoke over encrypted calls, never video. Burner phones preloaded with chat software that deleted everything in 22 seconds. I called myself Orion. They never asked questions. The planning took 9 months. Every night, I sat in a loft apartment in Prague, windowless and quiet, piecing the map together. Not just the layout of the museum, I had that already. I mapped habits. When guards took smoke breaks. Which custodians were late. What days the director skipped lunch. I bought footage from a Ukrainian surveillance broker, 6 months of internal security tape stolen from an outsourced cloud server. Frame by frame, I rebuilt the museum in my mind. I found the breach point. A rooftop service hatch above the north annex. No alarm. Just a mechanical lock and a blind angle beneath a ventilation duct. One you'd only notice if you were reviewing aerial maintenance logs like I had. That was Koji's way in. He'd killed the thermal perimeter for exactly 4 minutes and 16 seconds by rerouting the maintenance control pulse to loop its last stable signal. Meanwhile, Elodie would descend through the duct. No rope, just custom grips and elbow pads she wore like jewelry, and land inside the restoration wing, 6 meters from Gallery 2. She had 90 seconds to cross the corridor, pick the mechanical lock, and disable the silent alarm built into the floor beneath the painting. It wasn't motion triggered. It was mass differential calibrated, meaning even removing the canvas from the frame would set it off. But I'd already solved that. Because I had the original weight. I'd carried the piece 12 years ago. It was 7.9 kilograms. Koji built a replica core, hollow, same dimensions, filled with acoustic-weighted resin, sealed in a carbon fiber shell lined with thermally matched coating. Elodie would swap it in less than 10 seconds. Merrick? He was never supposed to enter the museum. He'd be waiting across the street in a bakery I bought for 60,000 euros 6 months earlier, buried under a fake name and a real license. The basement had a tunnel. One that opened up into the storm drain running under Wexley's loading dock. The exit strategy wasn't on the map. Because I built it. They didn't need to know what the painting was worth. Didn't need to know who had stolen it first. Didn't need to know that I was watching everything on a 7-inch screen in a city 2,000 kilometers away. They just needed to follow orders. And they did. Until one of them didn't. We hit on a Thursday. Not because it was quiet, because it was busy. Field trip day. High foot traffic meant fewer guards near the annex. Security response times were statistically 22% slower when school groups were present. More eyes meant more assumptions. At 1:42 a.m., Koji accessed the maintenance uplink from a relay unit buried 3 weeks earlier in a storm drain 200 meters east of the building. He looped the thermal feed. 4 minutes 16 seconds. Elodie dropped through the vent hatch at 1:44. By 1:46, she was on the floor in Gallery 2. I could hear her breathing through the subdermal mic in her collarbone. Every inhale clipped at the same point. Controlled. Focused. Mechanical. She crossed the distance. 7 steps. Kneeled beneath the painting. Pulled the frame sensor jack with one gloved hand while pressing the acoustic damper to the floor with the other. No alarm. Just silence. Then, swapped, she whispered. It was 1:47 and 13 seconds a.m. Perfect. The problem didn't start in the museum. It started in the bakery. At 1:48, Merrick was supposed to open the service hatch in the basement tunnel. Instead, he went dark. No mic. No ping. Nothing. I ran a pulse check on the receiver embedded in his earpiece. Dead signal. Then, 24 seconds later, the camera inside the bakery triggered motion. But it wasn't Merrick. It was someone else. No mask. No comms. Not part of the plan. He looked like Merrick. Moved like him. But I knew instantly, it wasn't him. The walk was wrong. The posture was off. Whoever he was, He carried himself like someone who didn't need orders. Elodie was already in motion, heading toward the tunnel exit. I keyed the mic. Hold position. No answer. I repeated it. Still nothing. I felt it then. The thing you're never supposed to feel when you're running a job like this. Uncertainty. I watched the screen like it could lie to me. The man posing as Merrick entered the tunnel. No hesitation. Like he'd built it himself. Except he hadn't. I had. Every inch. Every decibel. Every echo mapped, measured, and tested months ago. Even the ladder he climbed now, custom welded and installed in silence, one bolt at a time. And yet, he moved like it had always belonged to him. Elodie dropped into the tunnel 12 seconds later. I tried to speak. There's someone down there with you. He's not on comms. She didn't answer. But she didn't run either. The camera in the tunnel showed her crouched. One hand on the frame. The other reaching into her boot. The figure ahead of her, not Merrick, stopped. Turned. And smiled. I felt it then, like a key clicking in the wrong lock. This wasn't a betrayal. It was something worse. A replacement. The original Merrick? I didn't know where he was. Maybe dead. Maybe tied to a chair in some basement with a rag in his mouth. But this man, the one walking through the tunnel with Elodie's escape route in his head, knew every detail I had shared. Which meant one of two things. 1. Someone inside my circle had leaked the plan. 2. Someone had been watching me far longer than I realized. I pulled backup protocols. Triggered the silent kill switch on the replica canvas, designed to dissolve the interior if tampered with. No response. It had been disabled. Before the job even started. I called Koji. No answer. Called Elodie's backup line. Dead. I tried to remotely lock the outer tunnel door, kill the final exit. The system responded with an error I didn't write. Access denied, key sequence overridden. I sat back in the chair. Felt the room shrink around me. My plan, my perfect, mathematically precise plan, was no longer mine. Someone had entered it, learned it, and rewritten it beneath my fingertips. And I couldn't stop them. At 2:04 a.m., the outer tunnel hatch opened. I had eyes on the alley. The streetlight flickered, as it had every 47 seconds for the past 18 months. Routine. Expected. I watched as Elodie stepped out first, hood up, bag across her chest, eyes straight ahead. Behind her, the man still wearing Marek's body followed, casual, controlled. Neither of them looked at the camera I had buried inside the rusted drain pipe 10 feet up. But he knew it was there. Because just before he turned the corner, he looked up, right into it, and tapped twice on his shoulder. Right where the mic used to be. They were gone before I could do anything. No chopper. No bikes. No van. Just absorbed by the city. Like they'd never been there. Like I had never been part of it. I ran every trace. Called every fence. Burned every favor. Nothing. No one had the painting. No one had seen them. No alerts. No recovery. No insurance payout. It was like the canvas had fallen off the edge of the earth. And maybe it had. 3 days later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a flash drive. One file. Footage. It was from my own safe house. From the night before the heist. A silent, grainy video of me, pacing, checking my monitors, writing something down. But the angle? It was from inside the room. A camera I never placed. On the wall behind me. Watching me work. Watching me build a plan that someone had already stolen. I didn't move for hours. Didn't speak. Didn't breathe right. Just stared at the screen, trying to remember when the camera went in. And realizing I couldn't. Maybe Merrick was never real. Maybe Koji and Elodie were part of something I'll never name. Maybe X, the man who stood in my tunnel with my map in his pocket, wasn't replacing Merrick at all. Maybe he was replacing me. Some nights I still hear the faint static of my old earpiece. A click. A breath. And silence. As if someone's waiting for me to speak again. To issue new instructions. To believe I still have control. But I know better now. The man who built the heist was never meant to hold the painting, only to deliver the plan. Like a courier who doesn't know what's in the package. Or a puppet who never knew there were strings. And the worst part? I still don't know who it was really for. Or why they let me watch.